What's the problem? What's the problem?
I'm so hungry. They shouldn't eat.
Maybe they're cooking right now. What do you want them to do? Cook faster?
He said, do you want to take the long?
Let's go ahead and take your time, ladies. What y'all making here?
Saan ni tay? Adobo. Adobo day.
No, I don't want adobo. Fried chicken and french fries.
Hala, that's different. We're so hungry.
I don't want adobo. My gosh, how many times a week can I eat adobo?
Napikos, no?
You're not the one who
Yeah, well, yeah, you're right. I'm not the one who's gonna eat, but that means there's no food for me.
Fried niyo. Ang isang. Dali, ano mo, madam?
so hungry.
Baon lagi, pates lagi diyan, eh, di po. Sa di mo ka, ikaduha kong kurus, Jay. Paliw-bugog mga lamas lagi. Paliw yan.
Sino?
Kasi may trabaho din. Sino? Patiw ka.
Natusan na nila ako.
Sino? Sino? Ang iibigin ko.
Alagyan natin sweet baby ribs.
I've observed that when you squat these days, your booty almost touches the ground.
Bukan, lagyan natin sweet baby
You know why?
Sweet bread.
We got two rice cookers going 24/7 over here.
Wait, tatawa ko ang...
Ladies, easy on the violence here.
You take her to your baby, ha? Okay? Ganun din ang cooking naman.
What are you complaining about, Fatima? You're sitting there eating a plate of rice and you're yakking them? Hey folks, how's everybody doing? Hope y'all doing well out there. It's gonna be an informal talk, basically about camera talk. I know most of you aren't into listening to technical talk. But some of you are. Some of you run YouTube channels as well. Well, you're thinking about starting a YouTube channel, and so sometimes these talks, they help certain people, maybe not the masses. So if you're not interested in listening to a talk about cameras, just some general experiences, running a YouTube channel, and I'll tell you why. This channel is coming up on being 10 years old. Wow, it almost passed me by, but I was looking around in the about section, and I started this channel in December of 2012. I think it's the 23rd. Anyhow, a couple days before Christmas, this channel will turn 10 years old. I don't want to rehash what I've talked about in a previous video, but basically I started this channel because I wrote a book, and they say that it's very easy to write a book and damn near impossible to sell a book, and that's pretty much true. Most people who write books, they sell a few copies to friends and families, and if they ordered a bunch of books themselves, they end up in the back of your closet. You give them away as Christmas gifts, right? So I needed to promote my first book. Like, how do you do that? My buddy said, hey, you need to make a book trailer. I'm like, what the hell is that? I mean, I heard of a movie trailer. Never thought about a book trailer. He said, yeah, man, just put together a little video, you know, about what the book's about. I said, okay, then what do I do with it? He said, you got to post that shit on YouTube. It's like, damn. So I had to sit down, figure out how to start a YouTube channel. I already knew about putting videos together. I've been doing it, you know, since way back. I put together different videos throughout my my life, even starting at a very early age. I got my hands on a camcorder that my stepdad had issued to him at work. Of course, back then there's basically impossible to edit. You know, you're filming on tape. I won't go into that, but basically There wasn't no editing back then, right, in the 80s. And so, you know, I own various camcorders. I've got a lot of footage from, you know, back in the 90s and stuff. Some of it's some actually good stuff that I'll chop up later on in life and post. But anyhow, I wasn't new to putting videos together or making videos. But I had no idea about social media, YouTube, or anything like that. So with that story told, I started this channel to post a book trailer and promote my first book. And if you're interested in checking out those books, you know, click the link down in the description. That'll take you to my website and you can get a preview of the books. And head on over to Amazon. So that's how this YouTube channel started. Had, like I said, always interested in making videos and film and stuff like that, but it wasn't the purpose to say, hey, I want to start a YouTube channel and start posting videos. After I posted that first video, then I started kind of playing around. It was a hobby, what have you. I moved to Thailand, so I was living in Thailand. Should have took it very serious back then, but I was too busy drinking and partying and to learn the craft and to take it. I didn't take it serious. A few years ago, I started taking it more serious, and here we are. I don't know, 1,300 videos, 1,200 videos, wherever we're at. We're coming up on 10 years that this channel's been in existence, which is pretty cool. Changed the name twice. It started out, it was just my name. Then I changed it, I think, to Basecamp Journal, because I was planning on going to Nepal and spending some time over there, up in the mountains. That didn't materialize. And rebranded it to Overstay Road, because, you know, if you live outside your home country, dealing with immigration is an experience, a challenge. Let's just say it's a pain in the ass most of the time, right? Because it just is, right? I'm not picking on any country. Any country you go to, hell, my country, the United States, immigration is the worst, I'm sure. So my experiences are nothing compared to a lot of others. Anyhow, rebranded it something more appropriate to what I felt the content, and I hate using that word content. This is a show. I'm a product of the 70s and the 80s. This is a show. It's a travel show. It's my comedy show, whatever you want to call it. I have no idea how shows became content. I still don't know why the number sign became a hashtag. I mean, life was much more simpler back in the 70s, the 80s. Anyhow, it's kind of ironic I say that life was much simpler before technology, and here I am. If there was no technology, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing or living where I'm living. So I'm very thankful for the technology, but it doesn't change the fact life was much easier before technology. So, with that said, coming up on 10 years, I've learned so many lessons. If you're thinking about starting a YouTube channel, oh my gosh, it would take me days, just so many videos to tell you all the lessons I've learned. But one of the biggest questions is, what camera should I buy? That's always a big topic. People make a good living just doing camera reviews because people are thinking about starting a YouTube channel and they're researching what camera they should buy. Which is really ridiculous, especially if you're starting out. So I figured I would run through that. I've run through it before, but let me just jump into, if you're starting out, take your cell phone. You know, I'm an iPhone guy, I'm an Apple dude. Take your phone, hit the record button, record some clips of whatever you're gonna do. Dump that into iMovie if you're an Apple person. If you're not, some free editing software. You know, what do I recommend? An iPhone and iMovie. There you go. dump that into iMovie, chop it up a little bit, upload it to YouTube, and you go from there. You don't need to buy any equipment, okay? Especially even back in the day before stabilization was good on these phones, yeah, your footage would be shaky. I'm guilty of it. You look back, some of my stuff is so shaky you can't watch it. I needed a gimbal, but back then I didn't even know what a gimbal was. Some dude left a comment and said, hey man, you need to buy a gimbal. What the hell's that? I had no idea. These days, if you have anything from an iPhone, this is an iPhone 12 mini. You want a specific recommendation? As long as you have an iPhone 12 or newer, you don't need a gimbal. A lot of my videos with a lot of views, I'm just walking around holding this camera just like this, talking into it. The audio is great because my mouth is right next to the microphone, and you just walk around and narrate. Okay, flip it around, now you're looking at yourself. It's that easy. Okay, and this is an iPhone 12 mini. Don't invest in anything, because I think there's so many people, I don't want to say most, but there's a high percentage of people. It's no different back in the day, people who started blogs, 99.9% of them get abandoned within the first month or two. People realize that it's actual work. You actually have to do work, put time in, and you're not going to make $1 million overnight online. Well, it's the same way with a YouTube channel. Okay, most people, I think they're going to start it, they think they're going to make $1 million. Oh, it's so much fun, and then they realize that, holy shit, videos don't produce themselves. This is actually work. Now you, the viewer, all you see is the fun parts, right? But the reality is, say you go out and film, say I go out and film for 2 hours a day, I go out to eat, I'm drinking, I'm hanging out, whatever I'm doing, I just sentence myself to 6 to 8 hours of editing, uploading, the back end that you don't see. And a lot of people, they're going to figure out real quick, you're going to figure out, I would say within 3 videos. And some of you might stick it out to maybe 10 videos before you say, I'm not making any money off of this. It's too much work. This ain't worth my time. And you're done with it. So that's why I recommend just use your cell phone. I would say use your cell phone for the first 100 videos. Now maybe I've given different numbers and advice, in the past, whatever. I can't remember everything I say, and sometimes my opinion changes through time and experience. But if you're going to start a YouTube channel, take out your phone, do everything on the phone, and make 100 videos. And if you've made 100 videos and you're still excited about what you're doing, and you still think that making videos and the YouTube game is good for you, then and only then do you start thinking about investing in anything. Okay? It just makes sense because it's free to start a channel. You already have a cell phone in your pocket. You can test the waters without spending any money. But if you go out and you buy a bunch of gear and then 10 videos later you realize it's not for you, now you got a closet full of junk and your credit cards, got $3,000 on it for no reason. Now you're trying to sell the stuff on the cheap. Don't make no sense. So there you go. It's a question that's asked very often. So there you go. That's my recommendation. I've owned several cameras throughout the years, and I made like 4 points that I'm going to talk about. One of the big points on whatever camera system you go with as a photographer, as a videographer, is will that camera overheat? And I guess the real question is, will that camera go to work when you hit the record button, regardless of your environment? Now, if you're living in Canada or places where most of the time you're filming, it's cool, it's cold, there's snow on the ground, this may not apply to you and you may not feel this pain. Okay, but I live in Southeast Asia, have been for over 10 years, so all of my filming is in the tropical heat. And I can assure you every camera that I have but one will do a thermal shutdown routinely during my filming. All of them except the big camera. So I'm going to just go through them and I'm going to tell you one of the biggest concerns that you need to think about. And it's not just, does the thing have an internal fan? Okay, that's great. But the other thing that affects it is what? What frame rate are you shooting at? Are you shooting 4K 60? It's going to overheat. If you drop it down to 1080 30 or 1080 24, it's not going to overheat as quickly. These are all kind of factors that you need to think about in what your workflow is going to be. Now, if you're shooting short videos, probably doesn't pertain to you. I shoot 2 to 3 hours of footage on a daily basis. It gets chopped down to roughly 45 minutes most of the time, not all the time. And I'm here to tell you, I'm going to show you three of my cameras that overheat. Number one, the iPhone will eventually overheat, but it's the least offender out of these other two. I guess I should put them in order. This is a Sony RX100 Mark V. I call this thing the heater. This was built as a 4K camera. It's not. It'll shoot about a 2 to 3 minute clip on 4K and at 4K 30. Won't do 4K 60. And then it'll do a thermal shutdown, and you're basically holding a big old sack of steaming dog shit. Edit that out. I'm trying to keep this family friendly. This is a heater. It's a case where, and this is why I have a new camera system on the way. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I'm going to tell you what it's not. I looked at the Sony Alpha 1. I know everything there is to know about the Sony Alpha 1. I researched that camera. I love that camera. The flip screen is why a lot of people don't go with it. But the thing about it was, yes, it's an 8K camera. But this was a 4K camera, but it was like ahead of its time. And follow me here. Basically what they were doing at the time was trying to stack that technology in here to make this a 4K camera when it really shouldn't be. It shouldn't have been. You market it, it's got 4K, yes it'll shoot 4K, but for 3 damn minutes before it does a thermal shutdown. So they've stacked 8K in these cameras that are coming out, but are the cameras really designed to shoot for 8K for 2 to 3 hours in the tropical heat? Now, I don't have an A1, I don't have a Canon R5, whatever. That's a heater as well, I guess. I don't have those to test them. But I decided against going with an 8K camera, because if I'm out there with an 8K camera, I'm going to want to shoot 8K, and it's going to push the maximum limits of that camera to where it's going to overheat and cause me problems. However, if I took that camera and just shot 4K, backed it down, it probably won't. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, when you look at the top end specs of a camera, if it's pushing the technology of the day, the damn thing's gonna overheat. And that's the story of this thing right here. Now the Mark 6, the Mark 7, whatever they're up to, I'm sure they have a lot better heat dissipation and they last a lot longer, and they're probably a true 4K camera. But this Mark V, this heater, is guaranteed to thermal shut down within a few minutes. Every time you use it, it turns into a brick. So this is offender number one. It takes great photos. It takes great footage when it works. And again, if you're looking for a 30-second clip, hey, little pocket camera, great job. Oh, the other thing is this, and it ties into stabilization later on, but it still talks about, I'm still talking about when you push the upper limits of a camera. At 4K 30, this does not have active stabilization, and the footage looks like this. It's unusable. It's unusable unless you got it on a tripod, unless you're just standing there still like this. Drop this camera down to 1080, and where you have the active stabilization, now you can shoot handheld. So this is a great 1080p 60 frame camera. That's what this is. It's not a 4K camera, even though it can shoot 4K, because it overheats. So think about that when you're buying a camera and you're looking at the top end specs. Are those specs pushing the limits of that camera to where it's just going to be a heater and it's going to be a big old steaming hot potato / paperweight in a few minutes? Don't buy it. Or just buy it and realize don't shoot 8K on it. You're going to have to shoot 4K where you don't push the limits. Okay, next offender on the heater list is this damn GoPro. And every GoPro I've ever had, this is the version 10, I think. Is that a 10? I don't know. Every GoPro I've ever had has had problems. I think all the problems are due to the overheating. There's just so much heat that gets generated inside that little body that you end up with glitching, you lose audio, the camera will shut off, the camera will turn on, the camera will brick itself. I think it's all due to, it's just not, there's no way to dissipate the heat, right? Okay, so this will shoot 4K 60. Will it shoot 5? I think it'll shoot even higher than that. But this will overheat. Here in the Philippines, you run this camera long enough, it's going to overheat. The way you mitigate that on both cameras is just, you run them for a little bit and change out the batteries. Try to keep cold batteries in them, but it's a pain in the ass, right? So the GoPro is, it's a great concept, but it's not reliable. Don't try to shoot a wedding or film a UFO on a GoPro. It's not reliable in so many ways. Yeah, so that's a heater as well. And so many times that thing has, both of these cameras so many times have turned into hot bricks on me, and I've lost good footage that I needed to be filming. They're just so frustrating. The biggest thing in my mind about cameras is that camera going to overheat on me? Now, when those two things overheat, most of the time, this is the ultimate backup, and this is the last to overheat. Okay, on 4K 60, and again, this little RX 100, it won't even do 4K 60. So those are three cameras, three of my camera systems, 1, 2, and 3 that will do a thermal shutdown when I'm filming long videos here in the Philippines, Southeast Asia. Now, I can't attest to their performance under any other conditions because I've been here over 10 years and this is where all my filming's done. So maybe it's not a concern for you, but that's number one on my list is, will this camera overheat and have me standing here holding on to a fresh steaming pile of dog shit? And that's a big factor in the new camera system that I'm getting. Okay. Oh, okay. So the one camera that does not overheat is this Sony FDR AX100. It's a 4K camcorder. I think it came out in 2014. It's 8-year-old technology. It has never overheated under any circumstances. You know, swapping batteries out, keeping filming, it never, knock on wood, has done a thermal shutdown. Now it's a bigger camera, so obviously it can dissipate heat a lot better. But with this big camera, with the camcorder style, it attracts a lot of attention. And if you're thinking about going with a camcorder, think about this. Hey, this thing has been great. It is great. It has internal ND filters, great zoom lens. The footage is wonderful for a camcorder with a, I think it has a 1-inch sensor. It has night shot. You know, you can turn that stuff on and it's all green, but you can see in the dark, and it's actually got an infrared light on it. Remote control. I mean, this thing's a wonderful piece of gear, but it attracts a lot of attention. And this is just my opinion, but if you're carrying around a big camcorder, you look professional, and everybody thinks I either work for the BBC or you're doing some type of documentary trying to get somebody into trouble. or you're shooting a movie or something, it just brings too much attention if I'm carrying around this big camcorder. Unwanted attention most of the time. It's just a problem. Now, if you're on the beach somewhere in the middle of nowhere by yourself, who cares? But if you're going around to tourist attractions or filming on the street or trying to film at a museum or something like that, this big camcorder, people consider it a lot of times that you're doing a commercial shoot. Hey, do you have a permit? No, it's just a camcorder. It shoots the same frame rate, my phone does. You're not going to convince anybody. So that's an issue. And the other issue is if you have a little small camcorder, this is my personal opinion, you got a little tiny camcorder, I think people think you're like a little creepy. Like, I don't know, man, like, I don't know. It's just like they look at you weird, like you're I don't want to say a stalker or nothing like that, but there's definitely camera bias that goes on with different camera systems, right? What the general public perceives you to be and what you're doing and what you're up to. So carrying around a big old camcorder, you're the BBC. Where's your permit, or where's your credentials? Small camcorder, you look shady. You know what I mean? Whereas if you're carrying around like a small DSLR, a small mirrorless camera, what do you look like? You look like a damn tourist. Nobody gives you any problems. So I'll give you a hint. I'm going with a mirrorless full frame camera. There's a hint right there. To number one, increase the quality of the video. Number two, to bring less attention to myself compared to this big camera that I've been carrying around for years, and a lot of other reasons too. But so moving right along, this camera doesn't overheat, but it attracts a lot of attention. Okay, but if I had a choice to grab, if there was a damn UFO going down the street right now, which camera would I grab? It would be this one right here. 100% hands down. The stabilization is good enough to hold this thing handheld. Much better than this newer technology in the RX100. And this stabilization works in 4K 30. Okay, so I made those notes about overheating. So if you're anywhere where you're going to be filming in a hot environment, it better be a consideration. And you know what? The form factor on this camera, right? Okay, how many times do people use this and really need the waterproof qualities of it, properties of it? Most of the time, no. GoPro needs to design a camera just like this, the same form factor, that has some type of internal fan or some type of better heat dissipation system. I don't care. Make it a little bigger and put a damn fan in there. And it's not waterproof. But guess what? When you put this media mod on there, it's not waterproof either, and I still use it. Until GoPro fixes the heat dissipation issue and which I think causes the unreliability issues, GoPro is just junk. If you're gonna get an action cam, get the DJI. Why? Because when you hit the button, it'll go to work, and you won't lose any footage. It's reliable. Yeah, the footage may look better on here, but what do you want? You want footage that's there, or you want footage that potentially is glitched or missing audio, or the damn thing won't go to work? Reliability is a big issue. Okay, so these cameras, I was actually going, no, let me say this about these cameras. I was actually going to throw these things into Subic Bay. I've been so frustrated with the overheating, but then I started doing some live streams, multicam live streams. And so basically, you plug in an HDMI out, and that's one camera. If you have this media mod, you can use the GoPro. It's got an HDMI out. And so these two cameras, my two heaters, when running a live stream where you're not recording to the memory card, and they're plugged in with external power, They stayed on for 9 hours in that bar doing a live stream without shutting down. Now, so did this big camera, but I wasn't worried about this. I figured these two cameras here would be done in no time flat. They stayed on for 9 hours, but they're not recording, and they're not, you know, it's different than when they're recording internally. I'm just using the HDMI out. So I'm kind of glad I didn't deep six these things in the bottom of the ocean, because I'll keep them as live stream cams. Multiple camera angles, so that's just 2 added camera angles right there. They work good at just providing extra camera angles. But being a camera themselves, I don't recommend either one of them. Okay? Alright, so moving right along. Try to get through these points right here. Alright, autofocus. This is pretty simple, right? You start looking at all these camera systems, watching these YouTube videos, right? Folks, the days of being able to autofocus, you don't have time for that shit. You're not shooting a movie where you have this big set, you got a focus puller, some dude, that's his job is to focus in. If you're making YouTube videos, you better have a camera that can autofocus. This is ridiculous that in the year 22 there's so many camera systems out there that cost thousands of dollars that the autofocus is garbage, absolute garbage. I don't know if Panasonic has made a camera yet that can autofocus. Maybe they have. You know, which camera has the best autofocus? It's Sony. There you go watch a million videos. You're not going to beat Sony on the autofocus. I don't have time to be messing with autofocus. Okay, occasionally when I'm doing these talking head videos, especially if I have glasses on, or if there's glass or window in the background, this camera will focus hunt. So I'll reach up here and I'll lock in manual focus. Other than that, or if I've got this thing locked off on a tripod and I'm, you know, filming something for an hour, I'm not messing with manual focus, and neither are you. Most of you are not going to. You need a camera that can autofocus. So that leaves Panasonic, you're done, out of the game, okay? Great specs, the GH5, all that stuff. I'm not owning no camera that can't focus. This is the year 2022, even 10 years ago, okay? Canon, it's okay, but you want my opinion, you're not gonna beat a Sony camera on autofocus. And if you're making YouTube videos, you're a one-man show, you don't have time to worry about your camera being out of focus, all right? There you go. I'm a Sony dude, and that's one of the factors right there, okay? Let's see. Stabilization. There needs to be some type of stabilization. Now, for the longest time, I thought I was going with the Sony FX6. I was waiting for a stock to come in, and I was going to buy a Sony FX6. Many times, if the shops here had an FX6, this camera's been missing in action for over a year, I wanted that FX6 because it has a great internal ND system. Awesome. But it doesn't have any built-in IBIS, right? So it's like, it's give and take. What do you want to give up? What do you need? And I realized that that camera is even bigger than the camera I'm shooting on now, and I'm trying to solve a problem by downgrading the size of the camera and the type of the camera and the form of the camera so I don't attract as much attention. Here I am trying to buy an FX6 that's bigger than this thing. I'm creating a bigger problem. And oh, by the way, there's no IBIS, and a lot of stuff that I do is handheld. So luckily I come to the conclusion the FX6 is just not right for me. Let's go through the camera systems. Obviously this has got the best stabilization, okay? This has got almost as good as that GoPro. You can walk around and hold this thing no problem. At 1080 you can walk around with this, but you have to be careful. If you switch it over to 4K, no, it's unusable because there's no active stabilization in there. So making YouTube videos, I think you need to have a camera with at least enough stabilization where you can walk around with that, even if you have to be a little bit careful, but you can use that footage. Okay, again, 4K, absolutely unusable. 1080, I can walk around and be still and kind of, you know, watch the way I'm walking. I can use it. But imagine if the only setting on here was like the 4K. You can't walk around with this camera. It's just too shaky. You try to stabilize it in post, looks like just jello going everywhere. Speaking of jello, I was looking at a Canon R3 at one point, until every video that I watched of the Canon R3, it looked like jello in all the corners. I don't know if that's the stabilization. I think they call it sensor wobble, whatever. And I'm like, that looks horrible. Who's got time to pay $6 grand for a camera and in the corners the shit's wobbling, looks like jello? Ain't got time for that. Okay, so stabilization, it's got to have some type of stabilization if you're going to be running and gunning. All right, ergonomics and form factor. They say the gear don't matter, that your camera don't matter, but yeah, it does. It does in so many ways. Now, I'm not saying you can't tell a story on an iPhone the same as you can tell a story on a GoPro. Yeah, it boils down to the story. But there's so many other things to think about. Is the ease of use of getting that camera in operation. That's a huge thing to consider. This camera here, it's got this little tiny button. It's a pain in the ass to get your big fat fingers down in there and push that button. And then you got another tiny button right here for the record, and to try to get that thing to going. And it's not fun to get this little camera into operation. It's a pain in the ass. Especially if you're trying to do it in a hurry and you're fumbling around, you can't feel the buttons. It's not ergonomically sound for run and gun situations. You just can't find the buttons quick enough. This thing here, too easy. Big old button, right? Something's going down, push the button and point in that general direction. It's like a shotgun. You can get that thing running fairly quickly. This thing here, I hate it. Because if I'm fumbling around and I'm trying to watch what's going on, there's nothing tactile about this. You have to stare at the screen, swipe down. If you're sweating, your fingers are wet or whatever, you can't get this damn thing running in a efficient manner. Now, you may not feel the same way, but if we have a race as to who can get their camera up and running, the more simple and the bigger the buttons that you have, the quicker you're going to get the camera in operation. And you can argue, but then I say, okay, don't look at the camera. Just do it by feel. Good luck getting that iPhone going. This thing right here, you can feel around and feel a big button and get it going. This camera right here, okay, gross motor skills. I can open the screen and there's a big old button on the back. I can get this camera going in the dark. No issues. These little tiny buttons right here, I can't even feel them. I mean, you got to look at it to find out where they're at. So it's about ergonomics, and it's also about ease of use, and are you motivated about using that system, right? Now, the final product that the viewer sees, that's obviously the most important thing about what you're going to put out there, right? But if you're not inspired to pick up that camera and go start filming, or it's a pain in the ass every time you try to get that thing running, you're not going to want to go to work. So the camera does have to inspire you to a certain level, if that makes sense. I guess it's like, and I'm not talking about you have to spend a lot of money. It's because this damn thing here is worth $1,000. You can get a lot of cameras out there in that $1,000 range that will inspire you to pick it up and go start filming if you're not inspired by this cell phone. So that's a factor as well. Is it easy to get that camera up and running? How how many steps do you have to take to get that camera up and running? Now this goes into talking about microphones and wireless mics and all that stuff. Folks, I have a Sennheiser G3 system. I bought it 10 years ago. It's a great system still. There's an upgraded system, but Sennheiser is wonderful. But you know how many steps I have to take to get that wireless microphone system up and running? Okay, it's too many steps. It takes so much time and effort to make sure that thing is wired up that I don't use it, and I never used it too much because it took me too much time. Now if you compare that to, let me pull this off of here because I have this is a little wireless system here, and I've got the receiver mounted up there. But basically when you pull these things out of the case, they pair. So there's not too many steps. I mean, I can just clip this thing on here when I pull it out, and it pairs automatically and I go to work. So it's easy to use this. You go out and buy a professional system, there's so many steps that you end up not using the gear. Simplicity, you'll end up using the gear. And also, to a certain extent, the gear needs to inspire you to use it. A lot of this is self-starting, self-motivation, right? Nobody came in here this morning and told me, hey man, you got to make a video today. You got to open up that camera and start talking to it. Nobody tells you that if you're a one-man show. It has to come from within you, right? And if all you're thinking about is, damn, I got to get in there and set up all that wireless crap, and the damn autofocus doesn't work, it takes me 5 minutes to get the focus locked in, it just convinces you maybe this isn't the game for you. And so I think a lot of people set themselves up for failure from the beginning because they buy equipment that is too complicated and too cumbersome, and they don't understand what they're doing. They don't know anything about frame rates, shutter speeds, aperture. They don't know anything about that. And when I started this game 10 years ago, I didn't know much about that either. But I do now, through experience. So starting out especially, simplicity. Pick a camera that inspires you after you do 100 videos on your phone, if you're still around. Consider what I talked about. You can watch a million camera reviews, but it still goes back to, is that camera going to go to work when I push the button? Is it easy to get it working? Is the damn thing going to autofocus? You know, if a UFO appears in the sky, which camera do I want to have in my hand? It certainly ain't a Panasonic, because that thing's not going to autofocus. It's certainly not a camera that's going to overheat in 2 minutes. It just goes back to simplicity, right? So the camera system that I have chosen to ring in the next 10 years, now maybe, I'll probably use it for, what, 5 years? Hell, I've had this camera here, I think, for 4 years, 4 or 5 years. That's the other thing too, cameras are expensive, right? Unless you look at it, how much am I paying for this camera per year? I think I paid, what, $1,500 for this thing. It's lasted, let's just say 4 years. What is that, 4 times 4, just say $400 a year. $400 a year I'm paying for this camera. Now if it gets stolen, yeah, you take a hit, but as long as you don't drop the damn thing on the ground, the useful life of a camera, does it really end up being that expensive? I guess that's subjective. So anyhow, those are just a few thoughts that I have on camera systems, and shit, 10 years of doing this, it's been a fun ride. I really feel like I'm just getting started. I'm a pirate looking at 50, so it's like the channel's turning 10 years old. I'm about to turn 50 years old, And so 10 years later, after a lot of trial and error, I decided to pull the trigger on a new camera system. It took me 10 years to figure out, you know, what I want. The lens is a big issue as well. The look that I'm going for. And I think I'm at a level now where it was time to buy a better camera, a more professional camera, so I can continue learning. 10 years ago, did I need this camera that I'm buying now? Hell no, because I didn't know how to use it. I'm at a level now where I know the basics and I can start learning and hopefully producing better quality films, if that makes sense. So what camera system do you think I finally decided on? Some of y'all probably already know, but so here's the thing. The reason I'm doing this video is because the new camera is almost here. It's almost here. I'll do a video about, well, I got it from B&H. It came from the US, whatever. So it's almost here. And the reason I did that, folks, because this worldwide warranties like they used to have is different now. Like you buy one in the US, typically it only gets serviced in the US. Well, I'm not in the US, but I'm in the Philippines. If I buy a camera in the Philippines, it has a Philippines warranty. In other words, it's only going to get repaired and paid for by Sony if you are in the Philippines. So my strategy was, I thought about it. I said, you know what? If for some reason I leave the Philippines, it would be damn near impossible to send that camera here to get it fixed and then ship it back to where I'm at. But obviously I have a support network in the United States. So if something happens where I have to ship it back, whatever, it's easy for me to ship that unit to the US, let them deal with it there, and then ship it to me wherever I'm at on the globe. Yes, I'm in the Philippines. I've been here for a while, but it's not my long-term strategic plan. So just keep in mind that if you buy one of these cameras, where is the warranty located? If you're just passing through the Philippines and you buy one in the Philippines, but you're not going to live here, realize that warranty is here. You can get it fixed wherever you're at, but you're gonna pay out of pocket. Also, I made a mistake by buying this thing in Dubai, which this camera is set on PAL. In other words, it's like 25 frames and 50 frames versus 24. And when you switch over to NTSC, where it has 24 frames, 30, 60, it puts this warning every time you turn the damn camera on. So if you live in the States, don't go to a country and buy a camera that's default set on PAL. And maybe they've corrected that, but not this one here. Make sure you're buying the right camera that's spec'd for the same specs in your country, right? If that makes sense. So there we go. Once the new camera system gets here, I will continue this video and show you the new gear that we're going to be filming on. Got a couple pieces that are still on the way. It's obviously Christmas time, so shipping times are slow right now. But good things come to those who wait. I'll pause the video until Santa Claus brings my new camera system. And let me just also say thank you to everyone out there. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. I'd be doing other things in other parts of the globe. Thanks to you watching my videos, listening to my voice, commenting, doing all the stuff. The thumbs up, the sharing, direct sending super chat funds, money on the back channel. We certainly appreciate it. And thanks to y'all, you allow me to live this lifestyle and allow me to invest in bigger and better camera equipment. I don't say bigger, but better camera equipment to try to bring you better quality videos. So there you go. I'd just like to say thanks. I'm so excited that I have the ladies posted with the window open waiting for the delivery guy. Now I don't know if he's coming today, but I had another piece of gear come. The guy said, oh, well, you weren't home or whatever, which we were. I said, we're not going to have that with this package. I got a lady posted at that door from 8 to 5 until that thing gets here. That's not cruel and unusual. They're just sitting there playing on the phone and watching a movie. But they are listening for the dude at the door. All right, folks. Until the delivery man arrives, let's take a break. Take a brief intermission. Showcase your beauty. Can you tell us where you got these new blue jean shorts that are looking so beautiful?
Yeah, you're the one buy it.
I know, I picked them out because I knew what would look good on you.
Thank you.
My goodness, folks, take a gander. Wow.